Good evening, family. This is Dr. Kia Pruitt. It's so good to come back before you on the evening of Monday, January the 30th, 2023. So we have some breaking news about a lab that was seized by special forces, as well as breaking news about arrests that most people don't know about. Now, you all know these things always occur behind the scenes because everybody's not ready to receive this type of information. But this morning, I did announce a very important arrest of a man that I call Bye Bye Man. Now, you all know this man as being the leader of the free world, but this news came again from an underground source. So you have to use your discernment to determine if this news is true or not. So what I suggest you to do is to go to the Patriot News or the news that we call Restored Republic at restoredrepublic.co. Look for the news that was put out or published on today, January the 30th, 2023. So there on that source, you can look at an article and read it, or you can listen to the video for yourself. So on the heels of that, we're hearing some breaking news about a lab that was seized on yesterday by special forces. Now, some people had asked me yesterday, or this morning, how do you know that the person who you say was arrested today was the real person? Because it could have been a replica. And that was an excellent statement. Excellent thing to say, because that allows me to segue into this article here. Let's dig into it, family. So it was again published on January 29th, which was yesterday. Special Forces seize deep state replica lab in Alaska. It says the United States Special Forces on Thursday seized an enemy replica lab near Fort Yukon in Alaska, which held dozens of deep state replicas, a source told Real Raw News. Now, the finds mark the second time that white hats located carbon copies of deep state actors. So you all know that deep state actors do have carbon copies for many reasons. So you're talking about politicians from all over the world, presidents and world leaders, entertainers, artists, actresses, actors, athletes even. A lot of these people that are before us are actors. They merely are being run and controlled by puppet masters who force them to do certain things to keep the masses blind, dumb, and on their knees and ignorant. If these people who sign contracts get off script or they don't do exactly what they're told, they can be eliminated or deleted and be replaced with a carbon copy. So that's why a lot of times when we look at the news and we see some of these people on the television, sometimes we see things look like they're on a blue screen because it's actually a CGI or computer generated image that's put before us in front of a green screen, and we can see that these things look a little shady. Also, some of these people have actors that wear masks or they have a carbon copy. So let's get back into this article. Real Raw News had asked the source if there was enough information or if this information was credible, and they said it was enough for them to act on to seize the lab. So he admitted at first that the council rejected the credible information for the remote mountainous terrain of interior Alaska seemed an unlikely place to hide some of these things. However, Fort Yukon, which is located on the north bank of the Yukon River, at its confluence with the Porcupine River, north of the Arctic Circle, has a bipolar climate with severe winters and mild summers. And I think this is one of those places that we're not allowed to go. So again, I'll let you read this article for yourself. Its inhabitants, 583, according to the last census, are Gwich'in natives who live in log buildings. So there are some natives that are there. We're just not allowed to go there. The city's airfield has only a gravel runway that is unable to handle large aircrafts needed to transport construction materials for something as grand as this type of laboratory. But the sources said the lab actually was 25 miles north of Fort Yukon. So again, I will put this in the description section for you to read for yourself. It's very interesting. It goes on to talk about how these were plainclothes special force operators that landed in Fort Yukon aboard a Cessna Caravan. They hired some of the indigenous people to guide them under the pretense of needing a local to point out spots to photograph the northern lights. So the guide kind of chuckled or laughed, cautioning them to either sleep in their heated plane or get their affairs in order because the ice claimed many lives before these special forces had come there to seize the lab. So I'll let you read that for yourself because it's a very fascinating and entertaining article, actually. But that's breaking news that is occurring. These labs are being seized. And as you read in that article, this is not the only lab that was seized. Another was seized before it on December the 22nd. And then we hear news about a very significant arrest. So again, I told you about a prominent arrest that occurred this morning, but 5 days ago, I talked to you about an arrest that was comical to me because this gentleman here, who is a former top agent of a three-letter organization that starts with an F and ends with an I, is a gentleman who actually accused number 45 of colluding with the bear and Vladimir Putin to do nefarious activities. But this same man who tried to bring charges, talk about karma, against 45 was just arrested for having dealings with this gentleman over there, a Russian billionaire. So I'll just read a little bit about that for your entertainment. And this was published 5 days ago on January the 24th. And I did report about this on 5 days ago, but I will report again just to let you know that arrests are occurring. And I will put this article in the description section. So a former top three-letter agent or official in New York has been arrested over his ties to an oligarch in Russia, a Russian oligarch. Now, this did make the mainstream news. This was ABC News. So law enforcement reported this and told this to ABC News on Monday. This guy by the name of Charles McGonigal, who was the special agent in charge of counterintelligence in this three-letter organization's New York field office, is under arrest over his ties to a Russian billionaire who has been sanctioned by the United States and criminally charged last year with violating those sanctions. So again, he was retired from the FBI in 2018. He was arrested on Saturday afternoon after he arrived at a JFK airport following travel in Sri Lanka, the sources told us. So he did plead not guilty to a 4-count indictment that was unsealed on Monday in Manhattan. But the judge, of course, said, listen, we have enough evidence against you. However, the judge released him on a $500,000 personal recognizance bond and placed restrictions on his travel and prohibited him from contacting anyone that's associated with this case. So again, family, I will put this article in the description section for your reading pleasure. And finally, we have another arrest that you need to know about that is very fascinating to me during a time when people say nothing is going on. So you see, we have to bring this up so that people can see that we're not making these allegations up. This is true. Military charges were brought against this particular official, J-I-M, last name M-A-T-T-I-S, and charged him with the T word. And you all know that the penalty of treason is you get deleted. But he fled the country, and where did he run to? No other place but the ukulele over there that's being dealt with now by Vladimir Putin. So United States Marines were looking to arrest the former Defense Secretary and Marine Corps General on charges of the T word, but they discovered that he had fled the United States for the ukulele, a source told Real Raw News. So he's a retired 4-star general. Spent 44 years in the Corps, during which time he commanded troops in the Persian Gulf War, in the war in Afghanistan, and the Iraq War. You would have thought this guy was a prominent special official, that he cared about the United States people and doing his job effectively. He was later nominated as Secretary of Defense by number 45 in late 2018. However, he in 45 fell out when, against his wishes, Trump did something very important. He pulled out the United States armed forces from Syria, which prompted this man to speak very ill and very poorly of the president. That alone should let us know that this man was off his rocker. And that prompted this gentleman to then sign or submit a letter of resignation. And after that, Trump called him the most overrated general in history and a not so good guy. So again, we have an arrest that was just made. I'm sorry, charges brought against this gentleman on today, and they tried to arrest him, but he made a journey to another country, to the ukulele. So this was on today, January the 30th, 2023. So Dr. Kia Pruitt has brought to you breaking news and information and sources to support my claim that things truly are going on behind the scenes as we're ushering in Freedom Day that will happen on February the 1st. Now, February the 1st is a very important day because it is Freedom Day, a day which commemorates the day in 1865 when then President Abraham Lincoln signed what we came to know as the 13th Amendment. And that amendment is very important because it effectively ended slavery. Now, some people say it may have ended chattel slavery, but it didn't really end slavery altogether because we were all enslaved by the banks, right? We were all enslaved by our birth certificate bonds being circulated on the New York Stock Exchange. But theoretically, slavery was effectively ended on February 1st in 1865. So we look forward to Freedom Day as a day to commemorate this day and also to think about and meditate on how we are living in a very great, beautiful, abundant country that founded this country on the premises of freedom. So freedom is one of the founding principles of our great nation. So we reflect upon it and we think about all the wonderful freedoms that we used to enjoy here in this country that have since been taken away by trying to censor us and trying to take over certain processes that will put other nefarious beings in place instead of the place that we selected. However, as we move into Freedom Day, family, stay encouraged and know that behind the scenes, the white hats are doing some very beautiful things. They're making significant arrests. They're seizing certain labs. They're getting rid of certain underground activities that have gone on against our babies and against humans, and just things, all type of crimes against humanity have been going on all over the world, underground, in these laboratories. But again, the white hats of the military are taking care of them. So family, as we go into Freedom Day, again, just remember that this is happening. Also remember the things that I brought forth before you earlier this morning, that we've heard great news out of Iraq. For those of you who hold Iraqi dinar, we heard that the Iraqi dinar, the consideration date is tomorrow, January the 31st. We've heard that all sales of the IQD will end tomorrow. Now, we don't know this to be completely true, but we're hearing this out of Iraq from people who are reporting out of Iraq. So if they are taking the dinar off the streets, then that could allow for an international revaluing of their currency on tomorrow. So a international revaluing just means that they will revalue or return the rate of the dinar, the correct rate of the dinar, based on them having their assets, their gold, silver, and platinum, and other commodities restored back to their country. So that's what a revaluation is. So there's a possibility that the Iraqi dinar will happen on January 31st. And if that happens, that doesn't mean we'll go to the banks. It doesn't mean we'll go to the banks and exchange on tomorrow, but it means at least that rate could go live internationally on tomorrow. So according to our sources coming out of Iraq, the Iraq does have a huge CBI, or Central Bank of Iraq, reserve of $100 billion. And they also have 38 tons of a stockpile of gold that will back the Iraqi dinar. This is important because the Iraqi premier announced in October that he was ending or fighting endemic corruption. He was working with other countries to restore his stolen money, meaning his stolen gold, and he was revaluing the Iraqi dinar against the USD. Now, we know over here that many countries, according to Project Sandman, have left the United States dollar and fled to gold. So this is important because we've seen the United States debt clock reports gold, silver, and oil at zero for the fourth day in a row. Why is this important? Because when countries drop the dollar, and which we knew that they would do according to Project Sandman, 209 countries had already agreed to do this, all dollar denominated assets will plummet to zero literally overnight. But now we know that gold, silver, and some of these commodities are not necessarily dollar denominated, but we just see that there's something going on that they want us to pay attention to. So what we've been told, and I reported on this actually this morning, that as far as we know, on February the 1st, the United States dollar will no longer be viewed as legal tender. So this is good for us to know when you consider that there have been many resolutions and bills put forward by Alexander Mooney to define the dollar as a fixed weight in gold. So again, according to our news source, on February the 1st, the United States dollar will no longer be viewed as legal tender. On February the 2nd, the United States Treasury allegedly would destroy all fiat dollars that have been returned to them from the banks and from stores. So some stores and banks have been yielding these fake currency, fiat currency, over to the Treasury, and they'll destroy them on the 2nd. And then we heard that on the 3rd, all Basel IV compliant banks are supposed to go public and announce in an announcement that we have a gold-backed currency. So you have so much going on in the news, family. I desire for you to stay encouraged, stay uplifted, keep your vibrations high, and know that God is working things out for our behalf. So family, on our behalf, family, this is Dr. Kia Pruitt reporting. I hope I've said something to raise your vibrations and to encourage you to create the most magnificent, amazing life that you desire and deserve. Peace.